Mao Mao was surprised to find herself working in the outer court instead of the rear palace. Her new duties were similar to those in the rear palace, cleaning rooms and doing odd jobs, and she didn't mind the change of scenery. However, she quickly found herself targeted by jealous court ladies who resented her proximity to the handsome eunuch Jinshi. Despite their efforts to intimidate her, Mao Mao refused to be cowed and stood her ground, earning the respect of her new colleagues. Despite failing a test given by Jinshi, she remained determined to make the most of her new job, even if it meant facing down her detractors. Mao Mao gets into an argument with a group of aristocratic women and manages to evade their scrutiny by showing them the scars on her arm from her experimental burns. Later, she reflects on the size of her quarters and the limited resources available for her work. During breakfast, the gorgeous eunuch asks if her room is too small, and Mao Mao remains non-committal. She observes the eunuch's unsettling appearance and compares him to a bug in heat. Mao Mao considers Jinshi's interesting aroma as a potential love potion ingredient and desires a stable to cook up her concoctions in privacy. As she cleans Jinshi's residence with Suirei, she discovers past incidents of theft and strange possessions and reflects on exploring the eastern side of the outer court, despite Gaoshun's warning. However, she is interrupted by a lady from the outer court who communicates with a hit to the head and tells her to stay put. Mao Mao sniffs a distinct aroma from the woman and wonders about its source before heading back to Jinshi's office. Mao Mao finds herself cleaning in the busy office of the gorgeous noble, Jinshi. As she collects scrap paper, Gaoshun offers her a cotton jacket to keep warm in the winter weather. However, Jinshi seems to be glaring at Gaoshun. Meanwhile, Mao Mao misses her father's herb garden and considers planting some seeds on the sly. She spots Lihaku, a young military official, and they exchange pleasantries. Lihaku mentions an investigation into a recent small fire at some storehouses. Intrigued, Mao Mao heads towards the building. Between her duties and interesting developments, Mao Mao's days are anything but boring. Lihaku and Mao Mao investigate a fire on the palace grounds, suspecting it to be arson due to the substantial damage. Mao Mao considers various potential motives, including dissatisfaction with the government and the shortage of potential brides caused by the former emperor's annual hunts for women. She ventures into the burned warehouse and discovers a smoking pipe made of ivory. Curious, she starts conducting an experiment with a wooden crate and some flour, much to Lihaku's confusion. Despite warning him of the danger, Lihaku insists on standing too close and ends up catching on fire, only to be quickly doused by Mao Mao. Mao Mao warns Lihaku of the danger as she looks at him and his snot-dripping subordinates. She explains that wheat flour is highly flammable and that it was the cause of the explosion. She recommends medicine to Lihaku and takes a pipe that was the reason for the explosion, planning to sell it. Planning to work late, she hands waste to the trash pit attendant. Gaoshun and Jinshi stand outside a lecture hall, bewildered by the ruckus emanating from within. The highest-ranking consorts are receiving instructions, and eunuchs and lesser-serving ladies who've been kicked out are standing around looking just as confused as Jinshi. Their curiosity is further piqued by a young freckled woman servant who's teaching the class. 10 days earlier, Jinshi informs Mao Mao that the pure consort's arrival has necessitated the education of the consorts. He then drops the bomb that Mao Mao must be the one to teach them. Despite her initial protests, Mao Mao eventually agrees to the request, albeit reluctantly. When the day of the lecture arrives, Mao Mao is shocked by the amount of people gathered around the lecture hall. Mao Mao enters the lecture hall to teach the high consorts of the rear palace. She ejects Jinshi, who isn't one of them. 9 consorts are present, each with their own reactions to Mao Mao's introduction. She hands out textbooks and tools, stressing the importance of keeping the trade secrets of the Garden of Women confidential, then begins her lecture. 2 hours later, the lecture is finished, and the consorts are left with their instructional materials. Jinshi asks what Mao Mao taught them, but she leaves it for his imagination. Gaoshun asked Mao Mao to look at a record of an old poisoning incident. A similar incident occurred recently where the victim consumed a dish with raw blowfish skin and meat, fell into a coma, and almost died. Chefs involved insist they didn't use blowfish. Both victims were Epicureans with a taste for unusual food, but no eyewitnesses were present during the meals. The victim fell ill half an hour after finishing the meal. Mau Mau suspects that the fish dish the victim ate was poisoned with seaweed. She gains access to the kitchen of the victim's manor and investigates. A man confronts her group, but they are allowed to proceed. Mau Mau discovers salted seaweed in a kitchen and takes a sample, suspecting it was imported from the south. The next day, she cooks and tests the seaweed with officials present. She finds that the seaweed was treated with quicklime to neutralize poison, but questions who suggested its import and if there is more to the case. Mau Mau trusts her intuition, but chooses not to accuse anyone. As she eats the seaweed, the officials are left stunned as she suddenly retches, twice in one day. The culprit was none other than the forgotten younger brother of the comatose bureaucrat. Mau Mau's suspicions about his odd behavior in the kitchen were confirmed, and he confessed as soon as they confronted him about it. However, the motive behind his actions left them disappointed. It was just a typical sibling rivalry. Still, the mystery of how he learned about the poisonous seaweed remained. As Mau Mau cleaned up, her mind wandered to the possibilities of a bizarre herb sprouting from a bug. Little did she know, she would soon be faced with a troublesome eunuch and an eccentric military commander who shared a stark difference of opinion with Jinshi. Lakan had a habit of prying into people's business and was interested in go, shogi, and gossip. Jinshi had recently hired a maid with a history in a brothel, which had caused quite the scandal. Lakan had his own history with a courtesan and shared details of her with Jinshi. Lakan showed a disturbing interest in the new maid and asked for her help in solving a mystery left behind by a deceased friend. Jinshi reluctantly agreed to listen to the details. Jinshi approached Mau Mau with an intriguing tale about a family squabble over the secrets of a deceased metalworker. His 3 talented sons inherited his estate. One got a workshop, another received a decorated piece of furniture, and the youngest got a goldfish bowl. But their father's will contained an enigmatic suggestion for them to sit down and share tea, which left Mau Mau pondering its meaning. She paid the family a visit with Balsam, where he questioned them, and Mau Mau examined their possessions. The eldest son showed hostility, the middle one showed off their furniture, and the youngest one reminisced happily about their father's love of strange ornaments. Mau Mau noticed unusual architecture in their workshop and a recent vacancy on one of the shelves, but the brothers claimed ignorance about their father's deepest secret. Mau Mau examines the bequests of the 3 brothers, noticing an intriguing disparity in calluses on their hands. She discovers that the chest with only 1 key has a drawer that won't open and is packed tightly with something inside. Using her clever deduction skills, she solves the mystery by pouring water into the youngest brother's goldfish bowl and positioning it by the window. The light entering through the window focuses on the chest of drawers, and Mau Mau waits patiently for the light to move around the lock. The chest's lock eventually opens, revealing a mold containing a warm key-shaped metal. Mau Mau removes the key from the mold, and it fits the locks in all 3 drawers. When the drawers open, the brothers are surprised by what they see inside. Mau Mau examines a chest of drawers containing metals and crystals in various sizes. The youngest brother, who displays burns on his hands, seems to understand the craft of metalworking and its potential toxicity. Mau Mau offers him a recommendation for an apothecary in case he falls ill. As she walks away, she realizes that whatever outcome results from this discovery of mixed metals is of no concern to her. Mau Mau was caught off guard when Jinshi asked about makeup during her meal preparation. After all, they had just come back from work, and Jinshi was changing clothes with help from Suirei. However, Mau Mau had extensive knowledge about makeup due to her background in the pleasure district. Jinshi then revealed that he wanted the makeup for himself, much to Mau Mau's confusion. She couldn't help but picture him with makeup, something completely unnecessary for a man with such heavenly beauty. Jinshi then asked how Mau Mau made her freckles, and she revealed her technique, using clay and oil that could be darkened by adding charcoal or red pigment. The next day, Mau Mau arrived early at Jinshi's personal room, ready to make him unrecognizable with an entirely new outfit and some oil-dissolved water. Jinshi was surprised and overwhelmed by Mau Mau's sudden action, but she knew what she had to do to complete her task. Mau Mau is cautious while washing Jinshi's hair, aware that his displeasure could lead to dire consequences. She ties his once glossy locks back with a simple scrap of cloth before putting the bucket away. Gaoshun returns with a worn commoner's outfit for Jinshi to wear. Mau Mau wishes it were even smellier. Gaoshun and Suirei are repulsed by the outfit, but Mau Mau proceeds with undressing Jinshi. She enlists the help of Gaoshun and Suirei to wrap Jinshi in handkerchiefs and binding cloths to give him a heavier appearance. They finish by applying makeup that slightly darkens Jinshi's skin tone, and Mau Mau decides to add some red pigment to his lips, shocking her assistants with the result. Mau Mau expertly applies makeup to transform the gorgeous eunuch, Jinshi, into a filthy-looking commoner. She even stuffs cotton into his cheeks to alter his profile. She then gives him a special drink that changes his voice. Gaoshun suggests that Mau Mau should not accompany Jinshi on his travels because it would undermine the effect of his new appearance. However, Suirei comes up with a plan to disguise Mau Mau as well. Mau Mau has a nagging premonition about the plan. Mau Mau escorts her transformed master Jinshi to a meeting outside the palace. However, Jinshi's new appearance raises suspicion in the palace, so they must be careful. On their way, Mau Mau critiques Jinshi's posture and helps him come up with a new name, Jinka. Amidst the marketplace, Jinshi enjoys the sights, while Mau Mau imagines cooking with herbs from her field. Their journey takes a turn when Jinshi notices Mau Mau planning to buy food and reminds her that a wealthy lady would never buy her own produce. Feeling ashamed, Mau Mau resumes walking in silence. An inscrutable expression crosses Jinshi's face as he tries to initiate conversation, but Mau Mau nervously scratches her neck instead. Her desire for food takes over, however, as she orders some meat skewers. Mau Mau offers Jinshi a skewer of grilled meat, urging him to try it. Meanwhile, she ponders why a eunuch like Jinshi would be in the military. After a conversation about their pasts, they arrive at a restaurant near the pleasure district where Jinshi has a meeting. Mau Mau decides to leave him there and heads back to the market while thinking cynically about the restaurant's services. Mau Mau wakes up at home and enjoys breakfast with her father. Her father asks her to go to the verdigris house to deliver medicine to a sick courtesan. Mau Mau goes and tends to the woman, who is suffering from a debilitating illness. While there, Mau Mau receives a message from a colleague concerning a customer who makes her uncomfortable. Later, Mau Mau talks to Mei Mei, the madam of the house, about the customer and how she doesn't want to become a courtesan. In the world of courtesans, finding true love is rare. Mau Mau and Mei Mei discuss their future prospects, while Jinshi meets with his aide Gaoshun to discuss their investigation. The mysterious Lakan visits Jinshi to talk about skilled craftsmen and hints at his knowledge of the courtesan world. With an ulterior motive, Lakan offers Jinshi a bottle of juice before leaving. Mau Mau had a vivid dream the night before, which she believes may have been triggered by her recent visit to an old acquaintance. In the dream, a woman with a knife had taken her hand, causing her to wake up crying. Despite her attempts to forget it, the dream lingered in her mind throughout the day. Later, while preparing snacks for their master's return, Jinshi asked Mau Mau about the regulars at the verdigris house and how to reduce the price of a courtesan. She gave him a detailed explanation of the hierarchy of courtesans, including the value of untouched women and how bearing a child would render a courtesan worthless. Jinshi couldn't help but feel concerned about Mau Mau, especially after the unexpected visit of a mysterious man who claims to be her birth father. Meanwhile, Gaoshun leaves to get more coals for the brazier. Upon mentioning the name Lakan, Mau Mau's attitude toward Jinshi changed drastically. Her gaze pierced through him with the intensity he had never seen before, making him feel as if she could destroy him with a single glare. It was clear that Lakan's daughter held a deep hatred for her father. Despite being shaken, Jinshi promised to decline Lakan's request. Mau Mau regained her usual composure and went back to work. Mau Mau notices that Suirei is watching her closely during tea before being interrupted by Suiren's request for her to go fetch medicine from the doctor. Upon arriving at the clinic, Mau Mau is tempted to investigate the medicinal cabinet, but is interrupted by a court lady. She then witnesses Suirei acquiring medicine from the doctor and realizes that Suirei works with the military. Mau Mau receives her medicine and tastes it on her tongue, always the curious one. Mau Mau is caught snooping around the stables and discovers a hidden medicinal garden belonging to Suirei, one of the court ladies. Suirei reveals she plants morning glories there every year, but hints at the possibility of a medicine to revive the dead. Mau Mau is intrigued, but knows she must be cautious as she is already on thin ice with Suiren's strict discipline for slacking off. She returns to her duties, cleaning and polishing with a heavy heart, wondering if such a medicine truly exists. Mau Mau hears a strange tale from Lihaku, the big dog. He reveals that some ritual implements were stolen from a storehouse that had been broken into on the same day as a fire. The thief is suspected to have used the fire as a diversion. Lihaku, however, does not know exactly what was stolen. Mau Mau remembers a case of food poisoning that had occurred after the fire. She then realizes that a clerk gourmand had fallen unconscious from food poisoning at that time. Lihaku then tells her about an important official, Master Kunin, who had died from an overdose of salt. Lihaku also shows Mau Mau an ivory pipe that he had been told to keep. The pipe was given to the storehouse watchman by a tall woman who smelled faintly of medicine. Mau Mau suspects that the incidents were all connected and possibly deliberate. Meanwhile, Jinshi and Gaoshun observe the conversation from a distance. The big mutt left Mau Mau to deal with Jinshi, who seemed put out for some reason. Mau Mau poured tea and offered snacks, and Jinshi asked about a certain military officer. She explained, but Jinshi only seemed more distressed and hinted at the possibility of other traps. Then Jinshi showed Mau Mau the name of a rare and valuable medicine, Calculus bovis, and asked if she wanted it. She eagerly accepted, and Jinshi promised it to her if she did good work. Mau Mau cleared away the tea and snacks, ready to work hard for the coveted medicine. Mau Mau follows the trail of stolen ritual implements and investigates a recent case of food poisoning in the palace complex. She finds herself in the archives and comes across a pale-faced official who provides her with valuable information. Mau Mau realizes that the stolen implements were for a mid-level ceremony, and that today a ritual is being celebrated at the altar of the sapphire sky. She rushes to the location, but is stopped by officials guarding the venue. Mau Mau desperately tries to convince them to let her in, but is met with resistance. Mau Mau couldn't back down, even though the soldier was much bigger than her. She tried to warn them that someone's life was in danger and that they needed to stop the ceremony, but they only mocked her. In a fit of frustration, Mau Mau sarcastically claimed that they wanted whatever was going to happen to occur. But before she could say more, she was struck on the head and fell to the ground. Despite feeling dizzy and disoriented, she managed to pull herself up and demand to be let through. She worried that she wouldn't get her ox bazaar in time and was willing to risk everything to get it. Finally, someone arrived to intervene, and Mau Mau ran toward the ceremony and the man leading it. Wearing a dirty uniform and with dried blood on her face, she flung herself at the officiant and ended up with a metal beam pinning her leg. Mau Mau reaches for her medical supplies, but is stopped by a mysterious man with dark eyes and a celestial voice. The beam that had fallen could have killed him, yet he seems unscathed. Mau Mau asks for her bezoar, not understanding why the man is there. He brushes her face and winces at her injury. She asks to stitch up her leg, but loses consciousness due to her head injury. Jinshi shakes her, but she wishes for silence. Mau Mau wakes up in Jinshi's glorious bedroom with an attendant named Suirei by her side. She's been given 15 stitches due to a sharp pain and dull quality pain. Jinshi, Gaoshun and Balsam come in to discuss the recent events. Mao Mao believes the recent thefts and deaths are not just a mere coincidence, but rather a deliberate act. She believes the dead craftsman's art and secrets are the key to everything that's happening. Mao Mao sketches out a picture of how the beam fell and explains that the fasteners melted due to the metal being near the altar. Everyone is stunned by this discovery, and they all come to the conclusion that someone is behind all these incidents. Mao Mao hopes that Jinshi and the others will be able to root out whoever's responsible for all these terrible deeds. Mao Mao couldn't shake the memory of the detached expression on the face of the woman who spoke of a medicine to revive the dead. Later, she learned that the woman, Suirei, had taken poison and died, to be burned as a criminal in her coffin. Mao Mao wondered why Suirei was named the only conspirator, and if she really acted alone. Her curiosity led her to speak with the doctor who performed the inquest. Through their conversation, Mao Mao suspected that Thornapple might have been involved in the poison, and her suspicion was confirmed when she opened Suirei's coffin in the mortuary. To everyone's shock, Suirei was not there. She had used Thornapple in her poison and escaped by walking out on her own 2 feet. Mao Mao asked Gaoshun to check the coffins as she had injured her leg. Gaoshun uncovered a particular casket that seemed off, and Mao Mao suspected it to be the coffin Suirei was in. Suirei was rescued after people had switched coffins, and it was revealed that there existed a medicine capable of reviving a person. Mao Mao knew of the ingredients thanks to her father, who had hidden its secrets in a book she had secretly read. She wished to meet Suirei, admiring her ingenuity and courage. Amidst her excitement, she realized her leg was injured and asked the doctor to stitch it up. Jinshi was amused by Mao Mao's sudden excitement, but unknowingly left the mortuary with unfinished questions. Jinshi is feeling overwhelmed with his responsibilities and recent near-death experience. Despite their best efforts, the details surrounding Court Lady Suirei remain unclear. Jinshi's aide, Gaoshun, updates him on Mao Mao's safe return, and they both drink a bitter medicine with a peculiar side effect. Jinshi is reminded of his duty as a eunuch, and Gaoshun boasts about his son's recent grandchild. Jinshi completes another routine visit to the Emperor's ladies, noting the peaceful integration of new consort Lulan. The former consort's residence was now a garish display thanks to its new occupant. The Emperor couldn't limit his visits to just his favorite concubines, including the present object of his affections. Lulan didn't seem to excite the Emperor's interest, and her constant change in appearance didn't help. The Empress Dowager's baby's birth scarred her, but she was able to bear more children thanks to a foreign doctor's intervention. Jinshi wondered what would have happened if the Emperor's first child had lived and hoped for a new crown prince. Jinshi found a solution to an exhausted consort's problem. Meanwhile, Mao Mao was assigned to the rear palace, free from the person she didn't want to see. Mao Mao finds herself enjoying life in the rear palace, where her days consist of tasting food, mixing medicines, and taking walks. The question of Gyokuyu's pregnancy is still uncertain, but there is a gag order on the subject to avoid any potential danger. The Emperor is discouraged from nocturnal activities with Gyokuyu as a precaution. Mao Mao passes along some teaching materials to the Emperor to help him pass the time. In the rear palace, rumours often circulate among the ladies-in-waiting, and Lulan is the newest subject of gossip due to her ever-changing outfits. Despite being a nail that sticks out, Lulan's father is an important advisor, preventing anyone from attempting to pound her down. Mao Mao wonders if the Emperor regrets driving out Arduo, who was an excellent advisor, and if it wouldn't be more convenient for him if she was still in the rear palace. Mao Mao visits the medical office and finds the quack doctor as lazy as ever. She decides to clean up the office, noting the importance of avoiding humidity to keep the medicine from rotting. She puts the doctor to work on the strenuous tasks and observes the expensive paper used in the office. Mao Mao finishes about half the cleaning and leaves the remaining task for the next day. The doctor offers her a sweet treat, served on high-quality paper, which Mao Mao finds indulgent. Mao Mao admired the high-quality paper she saw in the doctor's office. He explained that his family produced it and supplied it to the court. However, their family business had seen better days, and their product quality had declined since their access to the local trees had been restricted. When the doctor received a letter from his younger sister, warning of the potential loss of their imperial commission, Mau Mau realized that their paper quality had indeed suffered. She inspected the sample and noted that although the fibers were uniform in size and thickness, the surface was uneven and easily torn. Mau Mau's plan to ask for a friendly discount was now uncertain, and the doctor was left pondering what went wrong. Mau Mau was curious about the age-old methods used by the family to make paper. Despite the quack's reluctance to share, she learned about their particular way of breaking down materials and making glue, as well as their trade secret of using spring water heated to a precise temperature. When Mau Mau suggested using ox slobber to thin the glue, the quack finally caught on and hurriedly wrote a letter. As Mau Mau cleaned up, she couldn't shake the feeling that disaster could be lurking around the corner. Lihaku and Mau Mau discuss the price of buying out a courtesan's contract. Mau Mau estimates it could be around 200 silver for a cheap courtesan and double that for a better one, plus celebration money. Lihaku is interested in buying out one of the 3 princesses, Peirin. Mau Mau suggests it would probably be one of 2 people, a wealthy merchant or a high-ranking official. However, there is concern about Peirin's insatiable nature and whether she would be happy with either of them. Lihaku's salary is not enough to afford Peirin's buyout, which would be at least 10,000 silver. Mau Mau tries to help Lihaku win the affection of Peirin, a courtesan she grew up with. She examines Lihaku's body to see if he's Peirin's type, but they are interrupted by the palace overseer. Jinshi, the nobleman in charge of Mau Mau, confronts her about it, and she explains that she was only looking at Lihaku's body to make sure he would be satisfying for Peirin. Mau Mau wants Peirin to find love and have children, unlike many former courtesans who give up on motherhood. Lihaku is infatuated with courtesan Peirin, despite knowing she offers her services to other men. Although he is a bit foolish, Lihaku's persistence is endearing to those around him. When Jinshi arrives, Mau Mau suspects he may be jealous of Lihaku's physique. Jinshi questions the importance of outward appearance, but Mau Mau assures him it can reveal a person's habits. Although Jinshi's face is beautiful, Mau Mau tells him he lacks the one thing that Peirin considers important in a man. Later, Jinshi asks to speak with Lihaku, who follows him to a courtyard in the palace. The summer flowers, big-leaf hydrangeas, had been brought from an island country to the east and were now planted in the commander's garden. Jinshi, an elegant eunuch, had invited Lihaku to sit with him and spoke of Peirin, the courtesan whom Lihaku loved. To Lihaku's surprise, Jinshi offered to buy out Peirin's contract for him. Although Lihaku was grateful, he wondered about the eunuch's true intentions. Their conversation had come about because of Jinshi's aide, Mau Mau, who seemed to have taken a liking to Lihaku. Despite her cat-like disposition, she trusted Lihaku enough to introduce him to Jinshi and present him as a possible match for Peirin's older sister. Lihaku was unsure about the situation, but was willing to listen to Jinshi's proposal for Peirin. Lihaku refuses Jinshi's offer of 20,000 silver, as he wishes to marry a woman with his own money. He decides to work harder and save for her, while Mau Mau receives a letter from Peirin, who reveals that someone has been asking about buying out her contract. Jinshi visits the Jade Pavilion in high spirits, but the reason remains unknown. As the world began to thaw from winter's grip, Mau Mau focused on drying bedding while trying to resist the warmth of the sun. Her time in Jinshi's employ had been endlessly long, but she found satisfaction in the challenges of getting the rear palace medical office up to speed. Meanwhile, Princess Lingli's curiosity and budding personality entertained the ladies-in-waiting of the Jade Pavilion, though Hongniang longed for a child of her own. Mau Mau's attention was diverted by a request from Jinshi to find blue roses for the upcoming spring garden party. Though she knew it was impossible, Jinshi's insistence piqued her curiosity about the real reason behind the request, particularly when he mentioned a certain military commander. Mao Mao felt responsible for helping after learning that he was involved despite the risk. She needed a few things for this task, as much as she wanted to break his monocle. At the garden party, everyone was preparing for the event, admiring the roses Mao Mao had brought. Jinshi was pleased with the flowers, despite not being the blue roses he was promised. However, the guests were not impressed, and some were even laughing at the officials' behavior. Mao Mao's friend warned her not to go to the Crystal Pavilion anymore because she's been returning drained. Nonetheless, she needed something from there to make her blue roses. Mao Mao had asked Jinshi for permission to use the Crystal Pavilion's sauna, which she obtained with ease thanks to her book gift to Consort Lihua. She even constructed a shed in the courtyard for the steam to flow into, where she grew roses and tried to trick them into blooming out of season. Mao Mao started a trend among the ladies of the Crystal Pavilion with her simple manicure, leading her to suggest it to Consort Lihua too. Later, Mao Mao revealed her secret on how she made white roses blue by colouring the water they absorbed. Jinshi was impressed, but curious as to why someone would go through all that trouble. Mao Mao had a box with a secret item inside that somehow related to her nails. She was ready to scare someone with whatever Gaoshun had brought her. Lakan, our protagonist strategist, became bored at the banquet, as the performance had nearly lulled him to sleep. He had no interest in the multicoloured roses, and people's faces looked like board game pieces to him. Suddenly, a girl appeared and challenged him to a shogi match. Lakan, thrilled at the idea, accepted but was confused by the girl's wager. She asked for him to purchase a kurtsan from the verdigris house and added a twist to their game. After each round, the loser had to drink from one of 5 cups, but 3 of the cups had medicine powder in them. Our protagonist had a bad feeling about this, but couldn't resist the temptation of such a unique challenge. Mao Mao's drug-laced game of shogi with Lakan escalates quickly, with the stakes higher and more dangerous than anticipated. As the games progress, Jinshi realizes Mao Mao's true intentions and fears for both Lakan's safety and the impact on their relationship. However, Mao Mao's plan is revealed: to get Lakan drunk by adding salt and sugar to the alcohol, and then take him to a brothel to pick a flower. Jinshi is left stunned by Mao Mao's cold, calculated plan. Lakan, born to a prominent family, had trouble seeing and identifying faces. He found solace in playing Go and Shogi, which he excelled at. His uncle encouraged him to focus on voices, body language, and silhouettes. Lakan became a captain in the army, despite having no martial talents. One day, a colleague introduced him to the famed courtesan, Feng Xian, and they played a game of Go. Lakan had never lost before, but Feng Xian all but broke him over her knee. He laughed so hard he realized for the first time what human faces looked like. Feng Xian challenged him to another game of shogi. They had played Go and shogi for years, but her contract had been bought out, so they made a wager. He won the game, but lost her. After 3 years, he finally returned to find a withered letter and a dark red stain with 2 twigs that could have saved her. He rushed to the brothel, only to find Feng Xian was no longer there. He once played against Mei Mei, Feng Xian's former apprentice, and she nursed him back to health after a drunken night. He finds a dried rose in a box he sent her before, reminiscing about his daughter. One day, he noticed a child nearby who claimed she could turn grass into medicine. Little did he know, this girl was with his long-lost uncle, who had disappeared from the rear palace. His search led him to a brothel, where he was tasked with choosing a girl, but none of them moved his heart. However, upon hearing laughter and a child's song, he discovered a sick room where he found his missing daughter and a woman with a deformed finger. Lakan falls for a woman in a brothel, and despite objections, he buys her out no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Mao Mao trudges home and encounters Consort Lulan, attended by a swell of officials, including her scheming father. Though Jinshi and Mao Mao talk about past events, Mao Mao knows she may be despised by those who know the truth about her past. Mao Mao encounters a strange man who claims to be her father, but she refuses to accept him as family and is content with her adoptive father. She suspects the man is trying to displace her old man, but she won't allow it. Mau Mau doesn't hate him, though she may dislike him at times. She suspects he's got a nose for trouble and often wheedles her into investigating matters. If only he were more proactive, the resurrection drug might already be within reach. Mau Mau recognizes her jealousy of his natural talent. She playfully asks Jinshi if he would call him Papa, and he becomes disturbed by the idea. Gaoshun reminds them that fathers do not wish to be reviled, and that they should bear that in mind. Mau Mau finishes her congee, determined to not get emotionally attached to the strange man. Several days after Mau Mau's return to the rear palace, she received a letter and a package from her sister Mei Mei. Inside was a celebratory scarf, and the letter revealed whose contract had been bought out and by who. Excited by the festivities in the pleasure quarter, Mau Mau decided to take part and danced, but stumbled upon a visitor. Jinshi, who had come to deal with the matter of a strange woman dancing on the wall, was surprised to discover that Mau Mau could dance so well. As they talked, they wondered who the courtesan was that's been bought out. They both couldn't help but wonder who could catch the eye of a man like him. Mau Mau feels proud, knowing that the verdigris house will be the talk of the town. Not long after, she begins to feel an unusual warmth in her body, and realizes she reopened her wound while dancing. Though she is prepared to sew it back up, Jinshi intervenes and carries her down the wall. While in his arms, Mau Mau recalls the first time he carried her, which was during an unconscious moment at a ceremony. She then finally musters up the courage to ask him for her ox bazaar. Though she receives a playful headbutt, Jinshi's pleasure in her request is evident. Meanwhile, rumors about a noble buying rare medicinal items float around the court, including the claim that Jinshi's office is overflowing with get-well flowers. Mau Mau simply takes notice and eats her peach bun.